and pretty dumb startups.
So what do you guys think about the FDA clearance?
And one of the most memorable is Juicero. It was the world's first cold-pressed juicing system with Wi-Fi, health, wellness at the press of a button. Doug Evans, Juicero's founder, compared himself to Steve Jobs in his pursuit of juice. Google and Kobe Bryant would invest over $120 million into the startup. It was going to be the Keurig of juice, one in every home, an idea worth billions of dollars. Or at least that's what Doug Evans thought. Instead of this hippie Silicon Valley success story, Juicero would turn into a modern-day Shakespearean tragedy, and it was all thanks to one YouTube video. Certain roads in the United States represent entire industries. You know, the stock market, they got Wall Street, and when it comes to startups in Silicon Valley, it's Sand Hill Road. Ambitious founders with crazy ideas could take a roll of the dice and maybe strike it big, and Doug Evans would arrive on Sand Hill Road with starry-eyed dreams of juice. Now, Doug didn't quite fit the mold for an investable entrepreneur. He was just a graffiti artist from New York City who had ran a cold-pressed juicing bar for a couple of years. Though what he lacked in business knowledge, Doug knew with juice. He was obsessed with it, and his pitch to all the investors, a $700 machine that makes an 8-ounce glass of juice. The juicer would be small and simple. The fruit would be organic and hand-selected and shipped in a pouch. And at the press of a button, the juice would pour out. It would solve the biggest pain point of cold-pressed juicing, which is the mess. Because once you were done with the Juicero, you would just throw away the pouch.
There's nothing to clean.
And the investors drank the Kool-Aid, or the green juice on this idea, and would write Doug Evans a $120 million check, but without even seeing a prototype of this juicer. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? Now you may be asking, Vince, that's a lot of money to give someone for something that didn't even exist. Now Silicon Valley knows that about 75% of all the businesses they fund, they're gonna go broke.
VCs have a business model. It's called raise a fund, try to make a bet on 10, 20, 30 companies, and push all of them very hard, because if one can actually get through, it will pay for all the others.
And it's really just an odds game. Though if Juicero was gonna be a hit, it could be a $20 billion business just like Keurig. So with this $120 million in his checkbook, Doug would get to work developing the Juicero in what startups call stealth mode, or in secret, for the next 3 years. After laboring away for 3 years with 12 prototypes, and even after one prototype blew up in Doug's apartment and nearly caused the building to collapse, the Juicero was unveiled to the world, and oh boy, was it a beaut.
Nature.
We're riding the Juicero hype train, baby, we're going. Meet the Juicero, a Wi-Fi connected QR code scanning DRM juicer. Juicing was hard, but with Juicero, that was easy. Now, right out of the gate, Doug Evans would take his Juicero across the country to spread the good word of juicing. Totally non-controversial celebrities that are loved by everyone universally, that have never had any public scandals, you know, like Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop brand, Ivanka Trump, Dr. Oz. Medical experts from around the world would all endorse the Juiceros all over their social media, and Doug was becoming quite the celebrity within the valley.
Our founder, Doug, is straight up made of juice.
Literally, there's juice in my veins.
There's juice in my veins.
Though Doug would fall into the trap that many Silicon Valley CEOs often do, where they start to think they're the reincarnate of Steve Jobs. In a podcast promoting the Juicero on CNBC, he said this:
I'm going to do what Steve did. I'm going to take the mainframe computer and create a personal computer. I'm going to take a mainframe juice press, and I'm going to create a personal juice press.
Steve being the Steve.
The Steve, yeah.
He literally thought he was the Steve Jobs of juice. Delusional. Now, although everything seems so bright and happy on the outside, internally at Juicero, things were
Remember,
falling
chat,
apart.
you're
Doug's
only allowed
passion
to
for
donate
juice
popular links with over 50,000 views.
10 minutes later.
What the fuck? I already seen this video and skipping.
-10 lolly.
Yeah, of course. If I've seen something, I'm gonna watch it again. If you haven't seen it, that's like a you problem. Alright.
juicing, which was what started the whole company in the first place, was becoming his downfall. As you would probably expect, Doug was a vegan, though he was the kind where they need to tell you all the time that they're vegan. But not even that. He was a raw vegan, where you don't eat cooked vegetables. Because cooking veggies, I looked this up online, kills the vital life energy inside of them. Back at Juicero's headquarters, his employees found Doug's passion for veganism a bit too overwhelming. Doug would constantly yell and scream at employees who put milk in their coffee and tell them that they were sucking down cow pus. Okay, now this part is wild. So employees started to notice a cockroach infestation at the Juicero headquarters, you know, where they package up all this fruit bags. And rather than getting something to kill the bugs, Doug would create a catch and release release program for all of the insects bugging people in the office. You weren't allowed to kill bugs at Juicero's offices. Imagine your boss watching you catch a cockroach, making you take it outside and release it into the wild. Imagine that. That's how wild Doug Evans was. So remember when I said Doug Evans thought he was Steve Jobs? Doug then started to take more pages from Steve Jobs' book. Doug refused to give up ground on his own employees' expertise, often getting into screaming matches over the smallest details. And this would cause Juicero to hemorrhage all of the top talent they had. They would churn through a CFO, a COO, and a VP of operations within a year. And in spite of all of the funding and talent pool that they had in their early days, Doug's massive disagreements led to legendary volumes of exits and firing. Here are some of the amazing Glassdoor reviews talking about Juicero. Hire a real leader instead of a maniacal CEO. Nastiest C-level managers you could imagine. I know 4 people who were threatened physically by top management. Now, when things just couldn't seem to get any worse, they did. The independent reviews started coming in about Juicero. And oh boy, did people have a lot to say about it. Reviewers complained about the Juicero that it had to be connected to Wi-Fi to work.
There are all these steps. All this thing does is clobber a juice packet.
So if you had no internet connection, for whatever reason, you're not getting any juice for the day, buddy. So in order to juice, the Juicero had to scan the QR code on the bag, verified online with the database that it was a legitimate Juicero product so it could even make the juice. And then if the Juicero bag was 1 minute over the expiration date, the thing wouldn't even juice the bag. Now, while all of this kind of seems pretty insane, Doug did have a valid reason for this.
I didn't want a Wi-Fi connected machine. That wasn't my vision. I'm not a millennial, but in 1997, when Adwala had people die from drinking raw juice, I didn't want to risk anyone ever getting sick from having a raw product.
And while I understand where he's coming from, the only reason this happened to Adwala was because they didn't pasteurize the juice at the time. So why not just pasteurize the juice? Then you won't have to deal with it. Then the reviewers complained that the only way to use your $700 juicer was to sign up for a $35 a week subscription for 5 juice bags. There was no other way to use your juicer. Now that price tag of $700 was one of the most common complaints, and why was it so expensive? Now Doug had this intense Steve Jobs-esque perfectionism that caused him to make the best machine he possibly could, which in this case was a bad thing. Now normally a startup first makes what's called an MVP, a minimum viable product. It's made as quickly and cheaply as possible to receive feedback, but it's mainly to see if there's even a market for that product. So you're not spending tens of millions of dollars building something no one wants. So keeping that in mind, here's another quote from one of the first reviewers. Doug set out to make a great product, not a minimum viable version like most startups launch with. Now again, with the machine being at this mind-boggling $700, Juicero lost money on every sale. Now, third-party engineers had taken apart the machine at the time and had factored in just the parts cost alone cost $750. They had actually spent so much on the production and manufacturing that just 1 year into the launch of Juicero, the company was about to go broke. $120 million. Poof. So the board would demand that Doug Evans step down because he just couldn't handle the CEO thing. And they had a veteran of the corporate world come in to try to pick up all the pieces and figure out how to make Juicero profitable. Now the first thing they did is they would cut the price of the machine from $700 to $400, and he would focus on what Doug Evans should have done from the beginning, which was create an affordable machine for the masses. So the new CEO would hire engineers, designers, and they would all get to work on making this cheaper Juicero machine that would be the saving grace of the company, that would be priced at $199. Now I honest to God think if they came out with this machine first, I think Juicero would probably still be in business today, but that's not what happened. Now while Doug stepped down from his official title as CEO, he was still going around spreading the good word of his juice. Live Nation started having Juiceros at concerts for their artists, like Travis Scott. Whole Foods started stocking Juiceros at dozens of its stores, and just within a year and a half of the launch, they'd already sold through an impressive 1 million juice packs, with the average machine pressing about 9 packs a week. While this may sound impressive, at the end of the day, it really wasn't enough because Juicero was losing $4 million a month. Even with that $120 million investment, Juicero had spent it all, and they were about to go broke. So Doug would start to find other investors to come in and save the company, and through the stroke of luck or by the seat of his pants, plans. Doug had found a group of investors to dump a $55 million investment into Juicero. Perfect! The new $200 juicer could be made, Juicero could grow, and the company turned into a $1 billion conglomerate that we all know and love today. But that's not really how it went. So before the investors from UBS put in their money, they did some due diligence, as you know, you should do for any investment, to see if investing $55 million into this company was worth it. Now, this due diligence could take maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a month before that $55 million would hit that direct deposit on Thursday, if you know what I mean. And this would all happen if everything was cool, if everything went to plan, if Juicero was scandal-free. Though the timing of this investment could have really not been any worse. Bloomberg publishes an expose video that exposes how easy it is to hack the Juicero machine. You didn't need a $700 juicer. You just needed your own two hands to squeeze the bag, like a giant ketchup packet. And oh boy, did the media go crazy over this. Juicero became the butt of every joke at the time. Juicero was the Fire Festival of Silicon Valley. So in a last-ditch effort to try to change the narrative and try to save some face, the new CEO writes a press release begging the public to not squeeze the fruit bags. And this is what he says. The Juicero machine pressing is calibrated by flavor to deliver the best combination of taste and nutrition each time. I think you can imagine how the public took that one. You know, this is just some other corporate speak letter nonsense that just made everyone more pissed off. But the worst part of all of this was that this spooked the investors from UBS Bank. After they found out you could squeeze the bags by hand, UBS went running for the hills. Now, Juicero was in flames at this point. Employees were quitting left and right. They had lost control of the narrative, and the media was just tearing them apart. So the board would go to the new CEO to look for answers. Who caused this dumpster fire? And the new CEO would point at Doug Evans. He was blamed for messing with all of the company operations, being a distraction for employees with this insect catch and release antics. The failure of Juicero was put on Doug Evans' shoulders. So with no options left for the company financially, the Juicero board commenced the meeting for one last time. On August 23rd, the board members voted unanimously to shut down the company. They publicly stated they would give all of the customers refunds if they wanted, though one vote was missing from that last board meeting, Doug Evans. He was where the board always wanted him to be. Gone and far away, but not where the board expected him to be. He was in the Nevada desert, tripping on acid, at Burning Man, while his own company was burning in flames. Now, a week after the board had shut down his own company, Doug posted this picture on Instagram with the hashtag peace and love. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Now, while Juicero is enshrined in the Museum of Silicon Valley Failures, what is Doug Evans up to these days? Well, he's exploring his raw diet further, but now promoting his raw water cleanse. He's now selling unfiltered, untreated, unsterilized water for $130 a jug.
So just like water from a fucking stream or something. Alright.
If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like and a comment of what you want to see next.